Every city has one. The building that locals avoid. The one parents warn their children about. And the one teenagers dare each other to enter at night. For some, it's a factory, a school, or a church. But few structures carry as much dread as an abandoned hospital. Hospitals are places where life begins and often where it ends. When they're abandoned, the walls don't just hold dust and broken tiles, they hold echoes, memories, whispers of the hundreds, sometimes thousands who passed through. And in some hospitals, those echoes never fade. This is the story of Riverside Asylum, a sprawling medical complex built in the 1920s, shut down in the 1980s, and left to rot. What remains today is a monument of peeling paint, rusted gurneys, and stories so unsettling that even seasoned urban explorers refuse to go back. Chapter 1. The Birth of Riverside. Riverside Asylum opened its doors in 1923. At the time, it was considered state-of-the-art. Long white corridors, tall arched windows, and a capacity for nearly 2,000 patients. It was designed not just as a hospital, but as a self-contained world, complete with housing for staff, kitchens, and even its own morgue. But behind the polished marble floors and bright wards, Riverside gained a darker reputation. Doctors of the early 20th century often treated patients with methods that would be considered inhumane today. Insulin shock therapy, electroconvulsive treatments without anesthesia, and even ice baths meant to cool the madness out were daily realities. Some patients came in sick and never left. Others weren't sick at all, only unwanted. Families dropped off relatives who were inconvenient, rebellious, or simply too different. And once admitted, the doors rarely opened again. Chapter 2. The Decline. By the 1960s, Riverside was falling apart. Funding dwindled, staff shortages grew, patient records went missing, and the wards became dangerously overcrowded. Nurses reported hearing footsteps in empty wings, doors that locked themselves, and sudden drops in temperature. A few whispered that the patients weren't the only ones trapped inside, that something lingered in the halls. When the hospital finally closed in 1984, it wasn't because the patients had been cured, it was because too many had died. Too many lawsuits, too many scandals. Riverside was quietly shut down, its patients transferred elsewhere. The building was left to rot. Locals began telling stories of lights still glowing in the top-floor windows, of screams that carried through the night, and of a woman in white said to wander the halls, searching for her lost child. Chapter 3. The Explorers. Decades later, Riverside became a magnet for thrill-seekers. Teenagers broke in on dares, ghost hunters brought cameras, and filmmakers used the ruins as horror movie sets. One group of urban explorers in 1999 captured footage that still circulates online in grainy fragments. The tape begins with the group entering through the collapsed emergency room. They laugh, joke, and shine their flashlights down the crumbling corridors. But as they move deeper, their laughter fades. On the audio, a faint metallic dragging can be heard. None of the group reacts until one stops suddenly, swearing he heard something behind them. The tape cuts abruptly. Hours later, police found their car still parked outside. Inside the hospital, they discovered only 3 backpacks and no explorers. Chapter 4. The Morgue. The morgue of Riverside has become its most infamous legend. Explorers claim the air is unnaturally cold, even in summer. Some say the steel drawers rattle on their own, as though something inside is trying to get out. A local officer once admitted, off the record, that during a search in 2006, his team heard knocking, slow, rhythmic, coming from one of the sealed body drawers. They forced it open, but it was empty. He never set foot inside again. Chapter 5. The Nurse's Log. In 2012, a cache of documents was discovered in a hidden basement office. Among them were the handwritten notes of a nurse who worked the night shift in the late 1970s. One entry reads, "The halls are never quiet. Even when the patients sleep, someone watched them. I've heard my name called in voices I don't recognize. The children's ward is the worst. Toys move in the night, rolling across the floor when no one is there. I don't think it's safe here anymore. Not for the patients, not for us." 2 weeks after her final entry, the nurse vanished without a trace. Chapter 6. The Woman in White. Perhaps Riverside's most persistent legend is the woman in white. She has been described by dozens of people: long hospital gown, pale face, dark eyes. She is said to appear in the maternity ward, crying softly, cradling something unseen in her arms. A historian uncovered the story of a young mother admitted in 1934 for hysteria. She gave birth inside the hospital, but was told her child was stillborn. Distraught, she wandered the halls searching for her baby until she collapsed in shock. She died days later. To this day, explorers claim she still searches, her sobs echoing through the decayed maternity ward. Chapter 7. The Last Patient Files. Of the thousands admitted to Riverside, many were never officially discharged. In fact, entire boxes of patient files remain missing. Families still seek closure, wondering what happened to their loved ones. Some believe the missing records weren't lost at all. They were destroyed, burned to cover up deaths, abuse, or even experiments carried out in the hidden wings of the hospital. One file that survived describes a patient who swore the hospital itself was alive. He claimed the walls whispered to him, that shadows gathered at his bed, and that the building fed on suffering. His final note simply reads, "It won't let me go." Chapter 8. The Present Day. Today, Riverside is sealed off, but that hasn't stopped the stories. Locals still report lights flickering inside or movement behind broken windows. Paranormal investigators have captured unexplained audio, children's laughter, screams, and the rattling of gurney wheels. Some refuse to even drive past the building at night. It remains, as it always has, a place where the living and the dead seem to meet. A place where suffering never left. Riverside is just one of hundreds of abandoned hospitals across the world, each with its own history, its own tragedies,
and its own legends. But whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing is certain: walls don't forget. When you walk the halls of a forgotten hospital, you are not alone. You are walking with every patient, every doctor, every nurse, and perhaps with something else that never found peace. So the next time you pass by an abandoned hospital, remember, silence doesn't always mean empty. And if you ever hear your name whispered from the dark, don't answer.